Tobago updates. Good morning, Tobago. Wake up with Kandace and Denise.
Welcome back to Good Morning Tobago on Tobago Updates. Viewers, yes, we are continuing our conversation this morning on the topic of Mr. Watson Duke, the political leader of the PDP and Assemblyman for Roxborough Argyle. Now, joining us for this next half hour to take us through and to give us a perspective on what's been going on, because certainly there is so much to talk about with this new development. We are being joined by Mr. Max James, who is a former assemblyman in the THA. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning to you, Kandace. Nice to be here.
All right, great to have you.
I like your colors this morning.
Hopefully, listen to me. When I'm wearing yellow, I'm representing Davies House for Bishops, right?
Okay.
So just putting it out there.
And I'm green, representing Bowls.
All right. Now, before we get accused of, just being a small Bishopian club, I know some people like to accuse Bishopians of that.
Okay.
Let's get into the topic of hand about Mr. Duke and his call for reconciliation. What do you make of it?
Well, there are many places we can start, but let us just say Mr. Duke is an anachronism. It is just what it is. His time, he's a spent shell, he's a spent arrow, and I think that Tobago has had its fill of him, and we want to move on to other things, and I suspect that that's it for him. He's politically finished. When I came into the studio, another commentator was saying maybe he's going to have a Lazarus moment. Then I said, no, not a Lazarus moment, because Lazarus was resurrected to good things. So let's be careful how we use that Lazarus moment. But I think in a serious way, I think that's it for Mr. Duke.
When you first heard the news, what were the thoughts that went through your head about this letter of let's reconcile, let's make up, I'm going to forgive you?
I was flabbergasted. I really was taken aback. I was surprised. It's just another of those crazy days where he foists himself upon the media. He came from Trinidad, came straight to this station. My nephew interviewed him. He wanted to have his say. He wanted acceptance. After you've done so much damage to the thing that you yourself started, and you started attacking the very thing that you started because you couldn't just not get your way, it was just unheard of. But with Mr. Duke, the things that you feel that you have not heard, you will hear. The things that you believe that you should not hear, you will hear. So I think that the Tobago people have given up on him. He's failed the electorate, he's failed his constituency, and he has made crazy political decisions. Now I think that when he claimed that he formed the PDP and it was his party, I think it was the most ingenious of him. Let me frame that part of the discussion quite differently. You remember him saying that it was his brother and a dog under a street
light, yes, with a blue horn.
Right, but I received this in my inbox this morning, and it's a little bombshell, because God doesn't do anything wrong, and he has a good timing. I suspect that he might have gotten away with it had not the PDP disintegrated by his own actions. Let me explain. Now, he started something based on a lie. We did not know that. I certainly didn't know how the PDP started. It was started on a lie. So here's one of the founding members, so to speak. So let me just read it. It's very short, half a minute. The PDP began with a beautiful democratic process, but was registered with selfish intentions. It was a Sunday afternoon at the PSA compound, Scarborough. Present were Mr. Duke, Mr. Caleb Phillip, Gary Boris, that's Tashia's father, Miss Nikisha Pantin, and many others. The process was a fully democratic one. Mr. Duke did not, emphasis, Mr. Duke did not choose the party's name nor the symbol. Everything was put to a vote. The people chose the name and the symbol, and both were put to a vote, and the one with the most votes was the winner. The entire process was guided by the people on the floor, not Mr. Duke's democracy. It was when he was ready, so he was given the opportunity to register the party, and he selflessly and clandestinely went secretly and registered the party in his name only. He used the people to get what he wanted, but did not get everyone involved in the registration process, just as he used Farley Augustine to help him win the election. And then we saw the true Watson Duke spirit and so forth. So that is how the PDP really started. As a founding member there, and Mr. Duke went behind against the will of the people and registered the party secretly. And had this thing come out, we would not have known that is what actually took place. So he's claiming that, no, it's my party. I started my brother and a dog under a street light. So what was started on a lie, what was started disingenuously, we're now getting the full story of how the PDP was really formed. Quite unlike what we are seeing in the TPP today. So,
and that's what interesting, because we saw the last few days, he kept saying, Mr. Duke has been saying repeatedly that the ideas are all his for the party in terms of the mandates, and the election promises were all his, and he's the one that's full of the good ideas, and nothing good could happen without his ideas.
Not at all. I was Mr. Duke's leader at one time in the PSA when I was the chairman of the Tobago branch here, and the chairman of the Tobago section of Mr. Duke was a part of. He was never a good trade unionist. He cannot even write a clause in a collective agreement. Mr. Duke, the last collective agreement that was signed by Mr. Duke in Tobago, I wrote it for the doctors at the TRHA. He came up with the first vice president and signed it after I had done all the heavy lifting. So he doesn't know a thing. He is completely bereft of an understanding of these matters and political matters. He cannot act without guidance, and he takes no guidance. That is why the PSA almost folded under him, and that is why the PDP folded under him. He takes no advice. I was his advisor. I was the first advisor he took for the PSA when he was president of the PSA, and he took no advice. And I resigned. After I resigned, he said, I'll fire you. So that's how the guy operates. So he's not to be taken seriously. I hope that the chief secretary, I don't think he's unwise at all, to even sit down with Mr. Duke to even consider any form of reconciliation. I think Mr. Duke is an abysmal failure. In fact, I saw him. He goes everywhere for recognition. He came to church on Saturday. I was there at Rock the Vale on Saturday with my wife and family. And he came in at the last half an hour. So everybody have to turn around and look at him. He came in there with his wife and his son. And I say, what a pity. And he's there clapping. I said, my God. And he's clapping and he's singing. I said, my God. So, you know, like...
So did he not have a conversation with him?
No, it is the second politician that I hid myself from. I wouldn't say who's the first one. I really don't want to meet him. I don't really want to shake his hand. And I was hoping that he wouldn't use that opportunity on the Sabbath to make a scene. So I let him leave. When I was sure that he went into his car, I came outside, because he is the kind who will create a scene. And the Sabbath day was not a time for creating such a scene. You understand what I'm saying? So forgive me. So that's the kind of individual he is. Not to be taken seriously. He believes in being grandiose and making a scene, you know, to get recognition. He's about self, and not about the good things of life, and not about good politics and so forth. I was given permission on the last occasion to call him a particular name, but I will refrain myself. Now is not a day. Today's what? Wednesday? Wednesday is not a day for cursing.
Now, what should we? How should people now feel about this olive branch approach, especially in light that all that has happened, and in light of people not being pleased with the political fighting going on. I mean, and it's unfortunate that our news headlines has been so captivated by, you know, whether or not Mr. Augustine is against the Prime Minister or Mr. Augustine is against Mr. Duke. I mean, there's been a lot of animosity and adversarial relationships all about. So how should people view this olive branch approach in light of all of that?
Well, there's no olive branch. I don't know why people frame it as an olive branch. I think Mr. Duke is an agent of the PNM. It's either he's an agent of the PNM or he's an agent of the devil himself. But there's no agency involved here at all whatsoever. In terms of characterizing our Chief Secretary as antagonistic or having an antagonistic relationship with the Prime Minister, it's the Prime Minister from Tobago who set this thing up. And I think the party, and I think Mr. Augustine would have responded splendidly. I don't think that if you cut me, I will bleed. So to say that the Chief Secretary is having a polemic type of relationship with the Prime Minister is quite wrong. If you pinch me, I'll squeal. If you cut me, I'll bleed. So the Chief Secretary had to respond. And he's human. And so the Prime Minister is who went against the Constitution, or he delayed the constitutional process of appointing a chief administrator. It is the Prime Minister that has not instructed to date his Minister of Finance to ensure that we get 6.9% of the budget. It's the Prime Minister understands the boat situation. It's the Prime Minister understands the airbridge situation. What has he done? What should Tobago do? Then you take all of our gas and oil, and this give us back 4 cents or $4. I say 4 cents on the dollar. So that those are the true enemies, and those are the people who will come back and say, well, let us reconcile. And I've always been a secessionist, because I knew from since a little child, growing up in Bell Garden, toting peas in the evening and planting and Edos from Richmond, and having to go to Bishop's High School early in the morning, getting up 4:30, saying the family prayers, and then to catch the designated transportation, and to have to catch the 4:30 bus in the evening. If you don't get it, depending on the time of the year, you reach home in the night. And so we understand the struggle. So that the PNM has not done anything of any significant as a lasting legacy for Tobago. Others, they would have fixed the air bridge, they would have fixed the boat situation, and they would have fixed our telecommunications, they would have fixed the budget, they would have fixed the autonomy. And therefore, when those things don't occur, how dare anyone to say that the Chief Secretary is having an antagonistic relationship with the Prime Minister? It is the Prime Minister, his Minister of Finance, Shamfa Kojo, Webster Roy. They are the culprits. And I want to take the opportunity to ask Shamfa Kojo today, and I know Webster Roy today, can you please put on record that you will support a 6.9% for a budget for Tobago in the next month and a half or so? So I'm calling them out today. And I'm hoping others online who are watching also call out Shamfa Kojo. Let us see and hear where her heart is. Let us hear what Aina Webster would have to say about a 6.9% budget for Tobago. So I'm taking this early opportunity for that discussion to take place here in Tobago and by extension Trinidad, so that we want to hear what our representatives will say. Will you support, Aina Webster, will you support a 6.9% budget for Tobago? Shamfa Kojo, will you support a 6.9% budget for Tobago? Keith Christopher Rowley, or Prime Minister, will you support a 6.9% budget for Tobago, or even more? Because you know what? Kamala Posebisesa, who is not a Tobagonian, would have promised Ashworth Jack to double the budget. It means, therefore, by administrative fiat, the Prime Minister could do it. He only has to say, let us do it. We want the airbridge fixed. We want to have the port fixed. So truly international station. Just as how he can take the decision to do an airport, the sea bridge is critical, perhaps even more critical because the fees are cheaper. We have access, sea access to any part of the world. It is a shorter distance to Tobago than Port of Spain to any part of the world. And we want to live too. We want to enjoy those things that God has put there in our waters. We want to enjoy those things too. This is not a union, you know. You know what passes for union? I was flabbergasted to see on the so-called Independence Day that in terms of the mechanized unit of the Defense Force, you have a long-haul tractor and a backhoe. I have the pictures here. It's a long-haul base truck and a backhoe. A green backhoe and a green truck. And that's what passes for Tobago. They're not even on Independence Day, where the Chief Secretary represents the President, and all they could send to Tobago is a backhoe and a long-haul base truck. It is really perplexing. There's nothing to be gained from this union. In fact, as I said, it's not a union. We were fused. The British took a decision, and Tobago protested it. But who were there at the time to challenge the crown? But they took a decision. So we were not unionized with Tobago of free will. That's what unionized means, of free will. We were fused. And we want to cut that. For me.
No, but getting back to the conversation about now Mr. Duke. And we saw him yesterday in Roxborough trying to, you know, make his presence known again. Because he expressed it. He said that, you know, he is going to refocus his energies here in Tobago, work towards building out the PDP, making sure the people of Tobago knows that the PDP is here to stay. Is there hope for Mr. Duke in Roxborough? Do you think that, you know, he is aware of what his people, the residents of that area, are feeling about his representation?
Roxborough is a rundown place. The people voted for you. He should have concentrated his efforts into bringing the Roxborough, Argyle and Betsy Soap people together. So we could have better roads, we could have cooperatives being formed, we could have a return to business activity. In fact, he himself went to China and Dubai, and he came up when he saw my brother doing such a wonderful master plan for Scarborough. He said, I'll do one for Roxborough too. On his own, without even the proper consultations. He left all of that dangling in front of everybody and went and wanted to be a mayor. The people voted for you for a particular purpose, not for you to leave here and go to Port of Spain, another demographic, another area of the country, a foreign area to you, notwithstanding he lives there, and so on. He lost his way. He lost his mandate. He was greedy. Maybe he wanted to be prime minister. The time for that may have come. But the point of the matter is that he left all those things there and went elsewhere, and then comes back and then said, you know, forgive me, I'll be a better person. And then you paint your head green. His head is either green or yellow. What kind of man is that? You left here with your head sponged or well shaven, and you came back with your head green. So what does that mean? What that tells you of the psyche of an individual is that. Then you say, I want to reconcile. But that thing, referring to the anchor, that cannot overhaul the PNM. And then you want reconciliation.
Do you think the Chief Secretary should accept the offer for reconciliation and go into a meeting with Mr. Duke and hear him out?
He will certainly lose me for starts. If the Chief Secretary does that, he will lose me. He'll lose a lot of people. He might lose everybody. It is not, the party, by the way, is not the Chief Secretary's party. He's only interim political leader. And even though he's political leader in the next few weeks or months, when the thing is really formed, it's still not his party. Those are political decisions that have to be sanctioned by the rank and file. He has to be given a mandate. He cannot act on his own. And that's the democracy, that's the bulwark, so to speak, on what the TPP has been formed and founded, where you have significant political decisions to undertake, you have to have the blessings of the party, except you already have the mandate and you're taking a decision within the context of the mandate. But the Chief Secretary or Mr. Honorable Farley Augustine and the executive, they don't have that mandate. So it's not even up for discussion.
All right, and then, just how should everybody or the people of Tobago now view this whole situation? How should we view this development? And I'm just giving you about a minute because we have about a minute left before the show ends. Yes.
Yeah. Well, I think I am calling Tobagonians to reject Mr. Duke wrongly and songly and overwhelmingly, and let us move on to better things. We have our harbor to discuss. We have our budget to discuss. We have autonomy issues to discuss. I think that we should focus on those things, the things that will now propel Tobago to true independence and autonomy. Those are the things we should focus on. A better economy, jobs for our children, education, scholarships, infrastructure development. Those are the things we should focus on. And I think that is what this executive council at present has been doing splendidly. I think we're on to good things, and I think that's what we in Tobago should prosecute and support this executive in making Tobago the best island in the world.
Yes, in the planet. All right,
on the planet.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mr. James, for being on with us and giving us your perspective. Always appreciated here.
You're most welcome, Kandace.
All right, viewers, and that's how we're going to wrap this morning show. I want to thank you so much for viewing us. So have a safe and wonderful day. And don't forget, you have brunch coming up at 10 o'clock.
The energy fill the skies. I say thanks for favor to wake up and hear